Hello and welcome to Project Scoring in Acumen Fuse. Acumen Fuse is a very powerful tool in the area of measuring quality. This can mean quality in the schedule, program performance, risk modeling, logic, and much more. Scoring is a key method in Fuse to quickly understand the overall health and quality of a schedule. To be most effective with the scoring options, it's important to become familiar with the options and to carefully plan the scoring method and the metrics utilized for scoring. Acumen Fuse allows flexibility to determine whether or not the score is displayed, how the score is calculated, and the extent to which each metric affects the overall score. Scoring in Fuse starts with the Fuse Options user interface screen, which I'm pulling up now. On this screen, the user selects three critical items related to scoring. 1. Whether or not the overall score will be displayed. For today's demonstration, we most certainly want it to be displayed. Number 2. Whether we're going to use metric-based or activity-based scoring. This is the most important option. Number 3. Selecting red, yellow, and green values for the overall score, and we'll be demonstrating that. First, let's talk about activity-based scoring. When I leave this item unchecked, I'm selecting activity-based scoring. This is also the default option in Fuse. So I've selected the option, and now I'm going to navigate to the diagnostic screen, and there is where I can perform scoring on my project. Activity-based scoring computes the final score, which is here on the right-hand side, by requiring an activity to pass all of these metrics in the ribbon view in order to count positively toward the overall score. In other words, activity-based scoring uses a pass or fail method, which calculates the number of activities passing each metric and the number of activities failing each metric to determine the overall score. In the example on the screen, the overall project score is 26%. The scorecard view indicates that some of the tasks pass all the criteria, while many others have at least one red exclamation point. Remember, only those tasks that pass all of the criteria will have a positive influence on the overall score when activity-based scoring is used. If I correct all of the problems within a single activity so that I eliminate all of these red exclamation points, my overall score is going to increase slightly. Not passing a metric is not always bad. For example, failing a negative float metric means the activity probably has positive float, which is often beneficial. Metrics can be designated as bad, neutral, and good using the metric editor within Fuse. In activity-based scoring, any degree of bad will prevent the activity from having a positive impact on the overall score. Conversely, when a metric's rated as good and a certain task fails to meet the criteria for the metric, it will not count positively towards the score. Let's talk about metric-based scoring. I'm going to return to the Fuse Options screen, and I'm going to select metrics-based scoring as the option. Metric-based scoring allows tasks to receive partial credit toward the overall score. Tasks receive credit based on how many of the metrics they've passed and the weighting values assigned to each of those metrics. I'm going to show you how this works. I have the same project here on my screen as before, but you'll notice the score is green now and it's much higher than it was previously. This higher score is a result of the metric-based scoring method. Using metric-based scoring, each task's individual score counts towards the total. The task isn't disqualified if it has any red. Instead, the score values from the individual tasks here are averaged to create the overall score rather than just the pass-fail status of each activity. Effectively, each task receives partial credit towards the goal of 100%. Let's relook at metric weighting with respect to the metric-based scoring method. The sliders can be used to adjust the weighting from bad to good, and you'll see here that as I move the slider, the overall weight assigned to each metric appears as a numerical value on the right-hand side of the screen. Note that the finish to start predecessor's metric is good, while the other metrics are rated as either neutral or bad. For each condition that the metric meets, it's going to accumulate the point value assigned to the weight, whether the point value is negative or positive. The system adds these values and it normalizes them on a scale of 0 to 100, and this is what determines that individual score per activity, which we can see over on this screen. Earlier we mentioned how we can set the scoring color range, so let's go revisit that now on the Fuse Options screen where we were before. By default, Acumen Fuse colors any score under 50% as red and any overall score above 75% as green. Anything in between the two is shown as yellow. I can adjust these thresholds in this Fuse Option interface just by moving these sliders. Now, something to keep in mind is that changing the thresholds will only affect the visible color range of the overall score. It's not going to influence the number that appears within the colored box. Now let's go back to the diagnostics view because I want to show you one more thing. We're going to slice and dice our project a bit, and we're going to use scoring to gain some additional insight on where we have opportunities for improvement. In the diagnostics view, I'm grouping the project by a field called contractor. The schedule quality metrics are now applied to each activity grouping, which is contractor, and the score for each group is calculated individually. We can see that ACOM and in-house areas of the schedule need work regarding this missing logic metric. We can go a step further, and I'm going to focus just on ACOM, and I'm going to group that contractor by WBS. If I click here, I can see the activities with missing logic under that contractor, which are negatively impacting that contractor's score. Above everything else, the most important decision to make when you're outlining a scoring strategy is the selection of activity-based scoring or metric-based scoring. As you saw in this demonstration, when I changed the scoring type, there was a significant difference in the way that scoring was computed and in the final result. Activity-based scoring places a premium on absolute compliance with the assigned metrics. The breach of any single metric on a task will prevent those tasks from receiving a passing grade. Metric-based scoring allows incremental improvements to tasks to be reflected in the overall score. The metric-based method typically produces higher scores, as a single task would need to fail in multiple areas simultaneously in order to receive a very low score. Acumen includes both scoring methods to allow project teams to determine how best to assess their individual portfolio or schedule health. More information about using Acumen Fuse for project analysis can be found on the Acumen website, www.projectacumen.com.